Hey, what's up?
Hey man, what do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about capitalism
Okay.
from a philosophical standpoint, because
Okay.
you're probably more well-read than I am, it seems like, and so I hope you don't mind me asking clarifying questions about some of the stuff you think. But as a starting point to launch off, what makes you, I guess, pro-capitalism?
Because capitalism is built on the philosophical principles of individual rights and freedom. I think those things are good and necessary for um, a good life. So that's why I'm a
Okay,
capitalist.
this is a good starting point. So, what is freedom to you?
Freedom is the banishment of the initiation of force from human relationships.
The banishment of the initiation of force from human relations. Did I get that right?
Mhm.
Okay, so what would you consider force in this instance?
I can give you examples like fighting people, threatening them with violence, stealing from them.
Coercion, would that be one?
Yeah, but coercion is just an instance of one of those things. Like coercion
Okay.
is, yeah,
Just trying to get a map of what you're talking about. Okay. Uh, so to me, at first, and we can go into this, but to me that seems like a very one-sided understanding of the concept of freedom, for example. I don't I don't necessarily see how that fits into actual freedom as it exists in reality, for example. Two, is this mode of production actually ensuring freedom, or even an idealistic, like libertarian sense? Would that necessarily ensure freedom by just removing all obstacles? And from a more kind of purely philosophical sense, freedom, in my estimation, according to like someone like maybe Hegel would describe, is the freedom to complete a process. Do you see what I'm saying?
yeah. Um, I don't really think a lot of that responded to what I had said earlier. On the Hegel point and the point broadly about freedom being like a material, there's like somehow like a different conception of freedom than political freedom. Um, I I think there is a concept for what you're talking about. Maybe I might say it's like the term capability. Like if you're capable, and there's different ways in which you're capable, like financially or educationally capable, or epistemically capable, or physically capable, or
Well, do you
financially,
want to
whatever.
discuss? Well, there are two different things are approaching right now. Do you want to discuss freedom in the context of political economy, or do you want to discuss Hegel's understanding of absolute freedom
Just whatever you think is relevant to responding to my
to
view. I mean, I
capitalism? Okay, so there are no positive freedoms guaranteed within capitalism.
what do you mean by a positive freedom?
The ability to not be coerced by essentially monopoly and finance capital,
What do you mean by coercion?
forced into selling labor for subsistence.
Forced by who?
The people who own the ways in which society replicates itself.
So in what way do business owners or people who own private property force you?
So you need energy to grow food, and you need food to survive, correct?
You do need food to survive.
Right. So those being in the hands, like let's talk about at the absolute base level of economy, the natural resources of America are mostly owned by private means, and that this creates a an unequal power dynamic, which eventually concentrates itself in unequal capital and thus political power, which forces the entire political economy towards abstract profit for the people that own these productive forces against the people that actually produce the surplus labor that allows society to actually like replicate itself, for example.
Yeah, a couple things. I don't really buy the explanation of labor kind of being the metaphysical source of value.
Okay, can you
That's the
explain
first
why you think
thing.
that?
That's the that's the first thing. It's not the essential thing. It's
Well,
just
good.
an
Well, no,
important
hold on. That's
qualification.
actually that's foundational to a disagreement here. You
I
don't
don't.
think that the labor theory of value is correct?
Yeah, not only do I think the labor theory of value is not correct, I also don't think that's the fundamental problem with what you're saying. I think the fundamental problem with what you're saying is you think that inequality um, necessitates force, or that somehow inequality is by nature coercive or unjust. That might be the a more operative
What?
moral concept, and I don't buy that. I don't
Well,
buy
hold
that
on.
people having things you don't have forces you or makes you or coerces you in some way.
Okay, so you're correct in some regards, in that like I'm not arguing for egalitarianism. For example, China has a socialist market economy. There is inequality there. Not everyone has the same things, but ultimately, I would not consider the people of China to be enslaved in the way that they are in the West under whatever mixed market, bourgeois fascism or communism or capitalism, whatever you want to call what we live in today, this type of transitionary political economy. I think those are two separate things. All I am saying in regards to the last example is that through the productive forces, the mode of production as capital that seeks abstract profit, ownership of the means of production from base level to even something like the internet infrastructure, that those are mostly held in private ownership. And from that point, the most ethical and rational way for them to operate is to extract profits, which is mostly in the service of rent or usury, which is parasitic and predatory.
What about private property by nature is coercive?
Because the upholding of private property in abstract allows people to control the productive forces that all of society needs at the level of the individual to maximize their abstract profit against the best wishes of the people
How
from
does that
which,
make it coercive?
because you have a monopoly on the ability to replicate society.
It's
So
private. You're
you
just
extract
saying it.
rent
You're
of it.
saying you're just describing. Like when I ask you why private property is coercive, you just described that private property is private. But that doesn't explain to me what about private property by nature is coercive. Like I understand private property is private. I know what it means for it to be private materially. I know how
The
the implication of being
rational
private.
extension, sure. So the rational extension of private property, we believe in rational behaviors, that the rational is the real, correct?
I mean, as a Hegelian, what Hegel thinks is rational is like the abolition and preservation of the dialectical process of change, which is inherently contradictory and identity preserving. So I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
what
but there's
Hegel, yeah, but
well,
what
did we
Hegel
get are
considers
we talking
rational
about
is like
Hegel now, or are we
intrinsically
talking about political economy? Because like these
was
are two
this
separate
not
things.
well, your view of the political economy like fundamentally relies on the dialectical metaphysical framework. This is
Well,
why
it
you. This
doesn't
is why.
actually.
This is
No,
why
no, no,
you.
hold on.
You
Hold
don't
on, it
think?
does
You don't think
not.
so?
Does not.
I mean,
Do you think
you
Marx
you
believed in metaphysics?
believed in a metaphysics.
Yeah.
What is dialectical materialism if not a metaphysical theory?
Dialectical materialism is a materialist framework of reality.
A framework of reality.
Yeah.
It's a kind of metaphysics. Thanks, man.
Okay, it is scientifically describing the
Okay, it's a kind of
material
metaphysics.
content of reality. Okay,
It's a
so
kind of
any
metaphysics.
description over a process
It's not
is
just
metaphysics to
scientific.
you?
It's not just scientific. It's about the nature of reality and the fundamental process by which human behavior is explained universally and across time. That's philosophical and by nature, and it's metaphysical by nature, which
So
is why it's regarded
all
as
of
metaphysical.
philosophy is metaphysics to you.
Specifically, the part that talks about the nature of reality and the nature of change, that is metaphysical. Yeah.
Okay, grounded in a materialist framework.
That's a kind materialism is a kind of metaphysical perspective.
Okay,
Materialism
so
is a metaphysical
all right,
perspective.
I'll just grant you that. Whatever, fine. Um,
My point is that
Marx and
your view does rely on the metaphysical your view does rely on a metaphysical perspective. And so when you ask
just
me,
say
is the
instead of just
rational
hold on, just say instead
hold
of
on,
this
you hold
jibber
on.
jabber,
I'm
just
not
say your worldview relies on dialectical and historical materialism,
yeah, but
correct?
do you understand this is what you're not understanding, right?
I'm
I had
conceding the
said
point of metaphysics. Just say that
that's
your
not the
worldview
that's
relies on
not
this
do
specific
you remember
understanding.
how we got to this point? So the reason we got to this point was because you had said, do you agree the rational is the real? And I said the meaning of that statement is not given the meaning of that statement, I probably wouldn't agree because what you mean by that is informed by your metaphysics And your metaphysics are as I described in the aforementioned. And that's why I wouldn't accept it. Because what you mean by rational is actually something I regard as very irrational, right? Because it's inherently contradictory and it's very up the clouds and it rejects kind of some of the traditional axioms of logic. So I don't actually think in that way. And so no, I don't agree that the rational is what's real in the way you just described, in the way that you would have to describe it given your commitments.
This is going to lend us into a wormhole of what we mean by rational, but I think that's counterproductive to the argument. So maybe put a pin in that. But as far as where did we come from before the rational is the real? We got sidetracked a little bit.
Um, I asked you why private property was inherently coercive, and I pointed out
Yeah.
that
Sorry. Yeah. Okay. So, the ownership of private property, according to Marx, more aligns with the idea not of like he first draws a distinction between personal and private property. But private property for Marx, as described in like Capital Volume 3, is something more akin to like having private property for no use to society. It is simply having it to have in abstract. That's more in line with what Marx describes as private property, from which point, because it is removed from like actual use in terms of
well,
replicating society, that yes, it is at the very best counterproductive, and in practice through the capitalist mode of
well,
production it's speculative and
I don't think that's right.
parasitic.
That's not true
Well, you keep
because
literally, you interrupt me three
that's
times
not
so you
right.
didn't fucking
Well,
listen.
you're rambling. Oh, you have lots of passion, dude. I've been actually really. You can ask the chat. Like I'm being so nice to you right now. So
Did
just
you not just interrupt me three times
I
in
just
the course of
interrupted you
one
because you just
sentence?
said what? I just let you go uninterrupted for like 40 seconds, and then I
No, you
stopped
didn't.
you.
You interrupted me three times.
Am I
But
missing
anyway,
something?
continue. What's your point of contention? What's your
Am
point
I
of
missing
contention?
something? Yeah, for one, it's false that Marx views private property as fundamentally unproductive. The whole prediction of the LTV and its consequent commitments is the tendency of the rate of profit to fall. And that prediction is made because Marx models capitalism as being inherently innovative and productive. He says that because you become more productive, right, you have less labor utilized. And because you have
What
less
does that have
labor
to do with what I
utilized,
just said? What does that have to do with what I
the
just said?
reason why is because you said, according to Marx, private property is fundamentally unproductive. That's just not true.
I said, what did I just describe
You
to you
just
as
said
Marx
that.
understand? What did I, no, but hold on. I don't think you understood
You said private
what Marx,
property is something that's owned, that's relatively alienated from social need and is basically unproductive. That's what you described it as, which is just not
yes,
true. Because what
why did
Marx
I say,
describes, because what
why
it
did
is,
I say the thing I
okay,
said?
hold on. You can rhetorically analyze your comment. I'm just responding to what you had said. Okay. What you said
But
was,
you're missing
this
out
was
the key
Marx's view.
point,
The key point was exactly what you just said, and I'm responding
according
to.
to you,
Because
according
what you
to you.
had said, according to reality, bro, what you had just said was a description of what Marx thought about private property. And it's wrong. Not only because Marx regards private property as fundamentally productive, but also because Marx defines private property more particularly as a certain kind of social relationship that the worker, that the owner has to means of production, such that they don't labor on it. Not that it's not labored on, not that it's not used, it's just not used by the owner. This is the distinction between the private. This is actually how he draws the distinction between the personal and the private property. So, like, I just think maybe you understand what Marx is saying. You certainly didn't demonstrate it in what you had just said. And that also doesn't answer the question I had asked you, which was, what is it about private property that makes it inherently coercive? And all you did was just kind of misquote me what Marx said about
Okay,
private property.
dude. Okay, according to you, there's so many contentious points in that, but I'm going to just wash it over to just very simply answer your question. What is inherently coercive about private property? And I'm going to answer that in the context of capitalism as Marx describes, which is that private property has a monopoly over the replication of society.
Why
And
is
in
that coercive?
order to offset the rate of profit to decline, they must extract rents on the people
Why is that coercive?
because the people have no choice but to eat, shelter, live, have energy,
Work or
replicate
die?
society as enough. And so if they do not have that, they will perish. So yes, it is by necessity.
Why does why does work or die make it coercive? Like, do you think that coercion exists in nature?
Well, your only option in
I don't
reality
think it
is
is.
to have sustenance and shelter or perish.
So is it simply the fact that the choice is work or die? Is that the objectionable quality about it, or is it something deeper?
Would you not consider that coercive? Yeah, sure. Why would you not consider that coercive?
I just want to clarify. It's just the fact that the options work or die.
Yeah, yeah. Why is that not coercive?
Yeah, the reason why is because you're misusing the concept of coercion because nature doesn't coerce you. Okay. The work or die dichotomy is not something that is necessitated simply because of capitalism. The work or die dichotomy is something that exists for all living creatures because we're conditional, we conditionally exist on self motion and on self generated action. And so work is just a necessity of living. It's not a necessity with respect to a certain social system. It's like a feature about the human condition. And so when I asked you I made sure I was right on this, like you're saying that the aspect about it that's objectionable is the fact you have to work or die. But like coercion is a relationship that I have to other people. Coercion is not a
Okay,
relationship that
right,
metaphysical
right.
reality can have to me. So that's the problem with what you're saying.
Okay, well, the problem with what you just said is that you're assuming a sort of anarchy of nature in relations to human social behavior, where in the capitalist mode of production, there is something called overproduction, which is a result of the tendency of
That
the
has
rate of
nothing to do
profit
with
to
what I just
decline.
said. That has nothing to do with
Okay,
what I just said.
so it is not in man's, it is
That has
not
nothing to do with what I
the,
just said.
okay, can you let me get the fucking point
It just
across?
has what you just said has nothing to do with what I just said.
Okay, explain why.
Okay, for one, I just made an objection to you about how you're misapplying the concept of coercion because coercion is a social relationship, and you described what the relationship that was coercive as something that can exist between me and reality. So you're misapplying the relationship. I
How is
was saying
that?
something. You thought I was saying something about the state of man's nature in society. I was not saying that.
No, I'm saying that because there is overproduction in capitalism, we do not necessarily need to labor
That
to
has nothing to do
survive.
with what I'm talking. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
Okay, so clarify what this esoteric
I
thing
just
that
told
you are
you.
trying to hark on. Is it
It's not.
just definition? Are you
It's not
just definition
esoteric.
mongering me about the word coercion? Because maybe I misspoke and there's a different word for it.
Maybe you did. Do you want to correct yourself?
Sure. So capitalism is ultimately unproductive. Let's go that far. It is ultimately unproductive and parasitic.
It's unfair. Okay, but do you understand that this entire line of questioning was about you make saying capitalism is objectionable because it's coercive? Like
Yeah,
this entire conversation
so
is
you're
you just
definition mongering me. So you're definition mongering me. Okay.
I'm not mongering
Congratulations,
you.
you win. I concede. I
Are you
have
okay?
misspoke. No, I'm just saying I
It's
concede.
not just
I
misspeaking.
have misspoke in saying coercion. I
Relax.
think most
Relax.
people would understand
Relax.
there are
Hey,
coercive
hold
elements
on.
to the
Hold
political
on.
economy.
Just hold on. Okay. Relax. The reason I'm asking this question is because consistently for 20 minutes, you made the point about coercion and you use this as the operative relevant concept in the argument. And now you're saying you misspoke. So now it's unclear. The entire context of the conversation has now changed because you were just now realizing that where your heart was at was not what you were actually saying. So I'm asking this question so I can clarify what exactly in your heart of hearts you meant to say in this
Host,
conversation because apparently
host,
you committed an error.
that's actually not necessarily true because there were multiple different points along that 20 minutes where I fundamentally rejected some of the words and phrases that you use, but I knew that was going to derail the conversation into esoterica that is completely useless in the context of like what you find as,
Yeah, but
I don't
this is
know.
the relevant operative concept.
Okay, so let's talk about capitalism as is it productive or not?
Okay, but dude, how does this relate to my? Do you remember I gave you an argument and you said that I was missing a dimension to freedom. I was one sided, and the whole point was there's like this element of freedom I'm not considering. And now you're like abandoning that entirely.
Well, we can talk about the Hegelian concept of freedom. Yeah, sure.
Okay, uh, I can tell you're a Hegelian because you're really indecisive and you're really contradictory. Okay,
I'm
like,
saying, yeah, Marx is a Hegelian. I'm a Hegelian too.
I could
Sure.
tell. I could tell.
What's
Yeah,
so
I know.
bad about Hegel? What's so bad about Hegel?
What I just said, you're abolishing and preserving the rationality and irrationality of your comments. Okay, that's the problem with what you're doing, and that's the problem with being Hegelian.
Okay, okay. I'm
Um,
sure this is a nice little autistic, logical, like uh, a thing. This is masturbatory on your
I just
end.
want to clarify. You introduced the term esoterica, and you're calling me autistic. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Check your privilege, bro.
Okay.
um,
Anyway,
but
so as
look,
far
man,
as your
I appreciate the
one-sided nature,
conversation, but unfortunately, your time has run out. Welcome to Varsity. Thank you for playing.